Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from worldwide. I'm Sterling. It's great to have you back on the channel. This show is being recorded on Saturday, April 12th, 2025, and will be posted to all media channels and platforms on Sunday, April 13th, 2025. As always, these shows are provided for entertainment purposes only. All the information I share with you comes real time through my guides, angels, extended spiritual counsel, ETs, famous people from history, so for entertainment purposes only. Also, if you just take a moment to like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell, all those things help the channel. We're still running about half of all the viewers of the channel are not subscribed. So if you find value in the content, just take a quick moment out to subscribe. It really helps the channel. If you're new to the channel, very quickly, we had almost 900 questions again on our community board area. It's actually called the post area, post section on our YouTube channel, Sterling Psychic Medium. And then my wife, Linda, does go through them. I think now for today's show, there's something like 87 questions coming out of almost that 900 questions on the post section. And I'm happy to go through them for you here real time. I really appreciate all the wonderful diligence with all the viewers, listeners that provide these very insightful questions. I want to thank everybody because it's your participation that really makes the quality of this show. So thank you very much. For those who need to reach me, get asked all the time, you can go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com. There's a book a session tab there. There are sessions available, dates available now in January, February, and March of next year. And if you want to join our Platinum membership, where I do live streams every Friday, you're welcome to join the Platinum membership. The join button is actually on the homepage of the YouTube channel, Sterling Psychic Medium, as well as the website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. And the Platinum membership, we have hundreds of videos up there, including a large range of instructional videos. Plus, you have access, to the live streams on Fridays, where we answer a plethora of questions, even mediumship, all sorts of things. So lots of fun getting together with the Platinum members. So without any further delay, let's get going on today's show, starting off with the countdown. Question number 87. 87. Hello, Sterling. It was just announced that the Social Security Administration will only communicate with the public through Twitter or X. This will make it so hard for many people that will not receive any information because not everyone is on X and many seniors are not on any type of social media platform. Will this continue or be overturned? I see it's going to continue, but it's really only, say, in general terms, to get press releases out there and announcements. I still see the interconnection with a lot of people with Social Security offices. And although it's difficult, they're shutting down offices. I really see the X or your Twitter or X platform being used primarily for those types of newsletters or press releases, that kind of a thing. So I don't see it replacing kind of interaction on a very specific account level, if that makes sense. So it does look like the SSA is trying to minimize costs in that area of managing a website or that kind of a thing. So anyway, my team is saying it looks like more for press releases, general announcements. And I would recommend that, I think everybody will eventually have to have some sort of a connection with social media platforms, whether it's through a community center or a friend or a family member or something like that. Okay, I hope that helps. 86 in the countdown. Can our animal companions choose their human families like we do before coming down to Earth? Yes, in fact, this is the way it happens. So every spiritual entity in the universe has a life plan, a life purpose. Animals are from the angelic realm. They actually come down with a life plan to align with your family. And remember, all animals are within our family to teach us lessons of the heart. Okay? Absolutely, animals have a life path and a life plan. And they come down to you. 85. Hello, Sterling. Will the final budget bill actually get approved by the Senate? And if so, when will the cuts to Medicaid start? It looks like it's going to get approved, but let's say some cuts won't come until beginning of the fiscal year. I think it's October 1st. But I see that whatever cuts are coming to healthcare overall are going to be spread across. So there are going to be some cuts in a number of healthcare programs, but somehow I feel it's going to get minimized because it gets spread over a lot of different areas. So not just massive cuts to one particular, say, health area, kind of not as severe, but over a broad spectrum, if that makes sense. So, but it looks like whatever cuts are coming will start in October. Remember, I said 2025 is going to be, this year is going to be a bit of a roller coaster year, a little bit of a rough ride, a lot of potholes. And then we get into 2026, things are going to start to even out. So I guess the point we're making here, my team's making, is that Medicaid, which is what the question was about, will not take the brunt of the cuts. 84 in the countdown. What will it take for the GOP to change their perspective on how they vote? I get a complete loss of 45's power and influence worldwide. And actually, the tariff policies going on right now are actually the start, initiation of a rather steep downfall coming. Okay. 83. Hi, Sterling and team. There are accusations that it was insider trading attached to the pause in the tariffs. Can you check if this happened? Well, what I get in a larger scenario is that, remember, a lot of the administration is following the Project 2025 plan. That includes weakening the U.S., creating isolationism for the U.S. Yes, the manipulation of the market was done by people that really don't understand what's going on, but then at the same time taking advantage with some insider trading when the market started to fall. So all the scenarios are true, but a lot of this is following the Project 2025 plan. 82 in the countdown. Will Canadians in general suffer a hard and difficult recession this year because of the tariffs from the States? I actually see that the recession has already started, right? So a recession really is two consecutive quarters of lower or negative GDP growth, right? So that's actually started. And now it's not going to be a depression. A depression is very severe loss in GDP growth over many, many quarters. So I don't see a depression, but I do see that a recession has already started. We're going to go through about 2 quarters here of a rough patch for Canada and the US. So it's true, it's already started. Remember, as you get out into 2026, it's going to start to ease up. 81 in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and team. This week, the Congressional House passed a bill restricting district judges from issuing nationwide injunctive relief orders against presidential executive orders. Well, the same bill passed the Senate. It does appear it's going to pass the Senate as well, but I see it then get tied up in court, like a lot of litigation. So, for example, not being able to utilize this overall construct to like deny for birthright citizenship, right? So I do see a lot of court battles ongoing, even though the Senate looks like they're going to try to minimize the power of judges and nationwide injunctions. It's going to tied up in court for a long time. It won't quite have the effect that 45's administration wanted to have. 80. Hello, Sterling. How is it determined who becomes guides or angels? How long does that usually take? So, according to my team, it usually takes thousands of reincarnations to become a guide, right? You have to be experienced and know what you're doing, even though guides learn through each one of us. Angels, believe it or not, were all created and assigned at the same time, beginning of the universe. Remember, all souls were created, let's say, activate around the same time. That includes angels. But really, the angel patch, from my team's perspective, is already predetermined, and so nobody rises up through the levels of angels, so to speak. There are people that exist in the angelic realm. If you look at a lot of ascended masters, they do. But being an angel is a very specific thing that occurred by the one source, the one force, around the beginning of the universe. 79. Hello, Sterling and team. Recently, the National Forest Service was directed to begin logging a huge amount of our national forest lands. Will this happen or will it be stopped? Well, I've read on this before. I recall this now. It will take place, but in certain isolated areas. Mostly it looks like in the West in the US, like Washington and Oregon. I did see something like 5 to 10% of national forests being affected by this. So it is going to move forward. So it's part of the rockiness that is 2025. 78. When using a pendulum and asking for answers, is it more beneficial to only call on one spirit guide or guardian angel in particular, so you know who is answering? Would different spirit guides give you different answers? So first off, as a basis, it's always important to develop your clairaudience side first. That's the side of connecting in a speaking and auditory tone with your team. Remember, pendulums, tarot cards, dowsing rods, reading tea leaves, those are all tools and they're extensions of your ability to connect with your team. So kind of a larger answer here, whoever asked this question. You need to develop the clairaudience side first. Then you're assured that whatever tool you bring into, say like a pendulum, you're getting real answers, not what we call sporadic answers, three yeses and a no. So that's important. I think it's always important to call on your team and the collective. I always say when you work with your angelic team, ask your primary angels and guides to please step forward. That's the best way to interact with all of them. And they do speak in a collective voice. It's not that you're going to get one answer from one guide and a different one from the other. Okay, so I hope that helps. 77 in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and Linda. There are rumors of martial law being called on April 20th. What do your guides say? This appears to me to be like martial law is going to get declared like in one state, like in Texas. And I read on this a few Sundays back or a few weekends back. It looked like martial law was coming up in all places, Texas, but it wouldn't last long, a few days, a few weeks, and then get repealed or pulled back. So I don't necessarily, they're not saying this looks like a nationwide martial law. I might try, but Texas, for some reason, looks like it's going to be happen. And it could very well happen around April 20th. 76, High Sterling and team, 45, signed an executive order to investigate two individuals from his DHS team, Christopher Krebs, former CISA director, and Miles Taylor, who was part of his Homeland Security team from his own administration, for stating that the election was safe and that the results were in favor of Biden. Will the DOJ's Pam Bondi move forward with this investigation? Whatever's going on here, I do see the investigation moving forward under AG Pam Bondi. I do see it moving ahead, but it looks like it's going to drag on for a number of months, but then it won't lead to any jail time or prison time for these individuals. So it's going to be a huge dust up. It's called a huge dust up. 75, dear Sterling and team, what happened to the 200 missing cattle in Colorado? There are no bodies, and they don't believe they were all stolen. My team saying this event, whatever this was, covers thousands of acres, and in fact, they were stolen by dozens of individuals. So this is not like cattle mutilation, an abduction by extraterrestrials. This is not a natural disaster, snowstorm or something. Yeah, but it looks to me like actually these cattle were in fact stolen. Okay, 74 in the countdown. Hello, Sterling. If it's written in the Akashic records that I would not meet a certain individual, but I put a great deal of manifesting energy into making this happen in my lifetime, could the records change a little to show that the meeting will happen, or is the record completely unchangeable? So, first off, remember the Akashic records are the complete compendium, complete record of everything in the universe, all past, present, and future. Now, if you think it in any lifetime you're in, it is part of the Akashic records. But the outcome may not always be what you think it is. So many times it's wrapped up in a lesson. So if you think it, you put all your energy towards one individual, there's something going on there with that connection. Could be a past life connection, could be something else going, but if you're putting that much energy in, let's say, the meeting of one individual, it definitely is on your life path. It's always key to a lesson. Now, whether you meet that person or not, you set that up before you came down here. So it's not a matter of the construct of you creating that event and changing the Akashic records. It's already part of the life plan you laid out down here. So if you're putting a great deal of thought and energy in it, it's absolutely in your life path. There's absolutely a lesson around it, but the outcome may surprise you. So it may lead to meeting that individual, or you finally realize, why am I putting so much attention on that individual? Okay. So I hope that helps. 73. Hello, Sterling. Will the USA go into a recession before we get the current administration out of office? Well, I just started to address that. It looks like we're already headed into a two-quarter recession. A lot of it like spurred on by the tariffs. I know the tariffs have been stalled, but it's created great uncertainty among the allies in the world and trusts in economies around the world, the U.S. economy and administration. So it's a little bit of a rough patch here. I don't think it's going to be a recession, right, for about 2 quarters, but I don't see it, remember, as major devastation. Okay. 72. Hello, Sterling. There are reports this week that six of the USA's B 2 bombers have been relocated to a U.S. British military base in the Indian Ocean on an island called Diego Garcia within striking distance of Tehran. Is there a plan between the U.S. and Netanyahu to attack Iran if certain demands are not met? No, what I see is this is somehow a protective or a preventative measure by, say, the U.S. military, because it looks like that threats may come, let's say, from Iran. It is within striking distance for Iran of that military base. So, what I'm getting is that this may be a preventive measure rather than an aggressive measure by the U.S. So it's like, if Iran were to say threaten that military base, there's something there to prevent that or stall that or make that kind of a non-issue. Okay, so my team's saying it's more of a preventive issue from a threat, let's say from Iran, to take out that base. Okay. 71. Hello, Sterling and team. Are the tariffs being imposed to crash the U.S. economy and create instability, or to push stock prices down so the wealthy could purchase them on sale for or some other reason? So, it's all the above. It's a reckless approach to the economy. It's following Project 2025. It's creating opportunity for billionaires, and it's creating isolationism for the U.S. It's really all of the above. 70. Hello, Sterling. My question is, who will win the North Carolina Supreme Court race? The GOP had 65,000 votes questioned in court and subject to reevaluation and audit procedures. Was there any cheating involved, and which candidate will win? It looks like the results are still going to stand for, is it Allison Riggs? Is that who it was? Yeah, because there were 65,000 votes being challenged. I read on this last weekend, and I did see there would be a few hundred votes look like might be tossed out, but the majority would still stand. So I think they're might be going through an audit procedure right now, but looks like the winner or declared winner will still be the winner, and I think it was Allison Riggs. I'm just going from memory here. Okay. 69, will the Doge technology team turn on EM and 45 to get a deal with the federal government? Well, yes, there's going to be a portion, nearly half of the Doge team that's eventually going to spill the beans on what's going on within Doge and the 45 administration. That's all very true, and that's going to help move the truth out to the public. 68. Will Gavin Newsom be able to negotiate a good trading deal for California with other countries in spite of 45's tariffs? Yes, and I get he's already started that procedure and he's going to have success in a number of areas. Could be around agriculture, technology. There's a number. It looks like he's going to be successful in a number of areas in negotiating some sort of a trade deal on behalf of California. 67. Are the future careers damaged and disgraced for those that supported 45, such as Marco Rubio, AG Bondi, etc.? Well, I would say yes. Once decertification takes place or we're on the downside of that cycle, many individuals that supported 45 will bail. They'll claim like we never knew them, even though they were in this organization. So, and that their careers will be affected. Absolutely. Yeah. 66. In the past, you've indicated that the economy is intentionally being tanked. Why? Well, this is to benefit other worldwide dictators weaken the U.S. When you think about the U.S. as a superpower, the U.S. is a threat to a lot of dictatorships, other countries around the world. So it's always been the intent of countries like Russia to somehow weaken the U.S. So if you have a group or an organization within the U.S. that actually has an allegiance to an offshore country like Russia, they're going to try to weaken it on the world stage. And weaken on the world stage to the benefit of countries like China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, obviously. Okay. 65. You indicated we stay within the same soul group of thousands of souls when we reincarnate. Does our mental behavior stay with our soul, or is that something that is in the genes of our new body? So your mental behavior, by and large, is all part of a physical attribute, a physicality that you put on your life path plan when you come down. Now, it's all part of your soul DNA memory if you had a prior lifetime, say with a mental disorder, but that physicality is all part of a life decision you make when you come down here. So not necessarily you travel with it lifetime to lifetime, depends on exactly the group of lessons you want to learn for this lifetime. 64. I was wondering, do you ever see any U.S. military action at the U.S. Canadian border? If so, what is the timeline? I don't see any major military action, but I do see groups of, let's say, subsections of the military, like the National Guard or whatnot, helping to prevent out of control protests, that kind of a thing. So, doesn't see any, armored tanks going across the border, but I do see levels of subsets of the military. Again, I call it the National Guard here, or somebody that are trying to, keep some major protests under control. I do see some of that. 63 in the countdown. I believe that 45 put tariffs on everyone except Russia so that each would have to come begging to him for relief. Is this his ego driving the scenario and the desire to create deals for himself? Now, here again, this is all part of Project 2025 plan. Look, I'm not saying there isn't a lot of ego involved here, but 45 is being directed by many influential people behind the scenes, people that drafted Project 2025 plan, billionaires, a lot of drivers behind the scenes on this. 62, Doge now has a new building in the Washington, D.C. area for their offices. Will they become a permanent agency or will they be disbanded once 45 leaves? I do see that Doge will be completely disbanded once 45 leaves. Actually, and once he finally is removed from office, Doge will no longer be in existence. 61. Hello, Sterling. Our cat of 15 years, who we called Girl, died tragically on Friday night. All day Saturday, I asked for a sign from her. I received a text saying, I hope you forgive me because I didn't do it on purpose. From an unknown number, did our beloved cat send this? No, what I get here is now these things can happen from a spiritual perspective, but I get with your situation, whoever asked the question, this is a technology glitch. Somebody trying to reach out to some other family member, not yours. This is a technology glyph, but your cat Girl is doing wonderful on the other side. Okay, like she has a great smell to her. So I was like, she was fragrant, and I get a lot of fur. So right. Yeah, I look like she liked to rub up against you. I'm getting all this coming through right now as I'm looking at Girl, right? Your cat. But no, that was a technology glitch, okay? 60. How much longer will ICE be making people disappear? For the remainder of 2025, there'll be a lot of court actions back and forth, and then it will start to stop as we move into 2026. So everybody be careful, okay? Um, there's all sorts of scenarios going on out there. Make sure you stay aligned with friends. People know where you are, what your details are, your phone number. Do some things to kind of protect, if you will. 59. My question is about the USS Truman and its flight wing. They were supposed to be coming back to Virginia in April 2025. They are now aware their tour is being extended. Do you see them safely returning in early summer 2025? They have been going 24 by 7 for the last month and have been deployed since the early fall of 2024. Don't know a lot about this, but I get whatever they're doing, they're supporting a lot of things in the Middle East, is what I'm getting, and they will be returning around that time frame. Yeah, about like the end of summer 2025, if that's whoever asked this question. Um, I think they're saying where there's extended, right? So it looks like kind of so late. I'm getting late summer of 2025. It looks like the bill will be returned safely. 58, High Sterling. If souls end up in the lower sections of heaven and the afterlife, after review, can they reincarnate to try to do better? Well, this is exactly what soul growth is all about. That's why people come back and forth so many times. Remember, the life reviews are not intended to harm you, they're intended to educate you, elevate your soul. What are the lessons you learned? So, yes, you absolutely have the ability to come back. It's all free will. And, the opposite is true. Some people say, I'm never coming back. And that's okay. It's a free will decision. Nobody forces you to come back from the other side. Okay. 57, do you see gasoline shortages or major problems with regular ground transportation and air travel in the US this year and into 2026, and or a major change in how people get around during the chaos? I don't see any major shortage of fuel, but I do see we're going to see price increases. Now, I think the petroleum markets are going through some very crazy stages right now. I do see a thing play out in 2025. For some reason, there could be a lot of rising costs due to uncertainty in markets. So it looks like won't be shortages, but there will be a lot of increased costs associated with all types of travel, air travel, all types of transportation. 56. Hello, Sterling. According to the lawyers at Legal AF, which is related to the Midas Touch Network, the person who actually is directing everything behind the scenes is Stephen Miller in the 45 administration. Is this true? So, yes, Stephen Miller is the chief architect of the Project 2025 plan, the way it stands now in its current revision. And yes, he's driving a lot of strategies behind the scenes, including, I believe you can even reference there are videos online of Stephen Miller coaching people in, covert hotel room meetings where there are suite meetings where they're going through the Project 2025 plan and its related strategies. Yes, he is actually one of the chief architects. 55, according to U.S. Representative Seth Moulton of Massachusetts' 6th Congressional District, many veterans are working on getting Afghans who helped American troops out of Afghanistan. The 45 administration is trying to stop this effort. What outcome do you see? These individuals are going to be stuck in place, unfortunately, for a good part of 2025. I do see a few coming out of this, a very small number, and then we're going to get large tranches of these individuals out as we get into early 2026. Okay, 54 in the countdown. A great deal of sleep apnea is caused by stunted lower and upper jaw growth, which means jaws are too small. It's very difficult to expand an adult jaw once a person has finished the growing cycle. Will regenerative medicine technology, such as gene editing or stem cell research, be created that will enable dentists to expand adult upper and lower jaws and repair the TMJ without surgery? Yes, this is all part of genetic engineering that's coming up. However, what I'm getting is this particular situation is more like 15 years, 15 years out. There are other genetic engineering and CRISPR technology being worked on now for Alzheimer's, neurological problems, cancer, and those are going to be the first ones that are going to be really a lot of heavy research. But there are things coming within 15 years in this area to help with other types of abnormalities. 53, Aloha Australian team. I have heard rumors that AI is already evolving into sentient technology. Is there any possibility that this will happen? So that's not quite here to date. We talk about artificial intelligence being sentient. That means being self-aware or having feelings. And eventually this is going to happen. We're at least a good decade out before that happens. You're going to see nuances of sentient behavior with artificial intelligence, but you can look for a good 8 to 10 years out before we're really starting to have that as a function of AI. So self-awareness, the AI is self-aware and has emotions or feelings. Okay. 52, how long will the tariffs go on? Well, there's going to be large swings in tariffs again for the better part of 2025. On again, off again, on again, off again. News release even this week, not just the 90-day pause, but now there are certain types of electronics coming in worldwide for phones, tablets, computers, flat panel televisions. They're now going to be excluded from the tariff. So you're going to see a lot of on again, off again, on again, off again for the better part of 2025. 51, approximately how long does the average life review take in terms of Earth hours or years? So, in terms of Earth years, or say Earth timeline, which is linear, it could take many months to many years. So it's like completing, years in college. Believe it or not, it's really like going to another university. Life review is very analogous to going through another university of education. So you're not in there full time. It's like you spend time. Take a look at the movie. It's always a nice reference. Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep. Great little scenarios in there, kind of how life reviews works, a lot of good humor, but there's a lot of truth. And though that movie was channeled from a lot of reality of the way things work on the other side. Okay, number 50 in the countdown. What exactly is deja vu? Is it a spiritual event? What happens when you experience deja vu? So it takes place from a couple of different scenarios. One is individuals may have a precognitive ability, which is really understanding what's coming in advance. So be able to jump ahead in time. They may not realize it, maybe a very subtle moment in time, but they have a precognitive ability. The second is there can be a little bit of a time jump or a time slip down to like a billionth of a second, which gives you a familiarity feeling. So kind of two major scenarios, precognitive ability or a little bit of a time slip, like in a billionth of a second. Okay. 49. In 1995, I lived in New York State by Stewart Air Force Base. At 1:30 a.m., I saw a low-flying craft. It was larger than my home, black, silent, and shaped like a cube. 30 years later, I'm still wondering which species of non-human intelligence I witnessed. Can you fill me in? You said this was a cube. It's coming across to me like it was Palladian mothership. Now, a lot of Palladian motherships are triangular in shape. I know you said it was a cube, maybe in the angle you were looking at it from, but it's coming across to me like this is a Palladian mothership. And they're very common. Of the millions of sightings worldwide that people have, most all of them, the majority are Palladium motherships. Then there's another subset. They are shuttle ships that move people back and forth between extraterrestrial ships and Earth. Others are extraterrestrial drones. Okay. 48. With instability and job losses in the US happening, leading to missed mortgage payments, do you see a large wave of foreclosed homes entering the housing market? If so, what sort of an impact do you see that having on housing prices? It looks to me like there's going to be at least a 10% increase in foreclosures coming up. I think a lot of times, I'm just going from memory here, a lot of times they rate it in like one foreclosure per 2,000 sales or one foreclosure and 1,800 sales. So it looks like a bit of like a 10% increase in that figure. However, it looks like a lot of whatever's being foreclosed is going to be gobbled up by investment groups. So a little bit of the interesting interaction in the market there. It looks like investment groups are going to know about foreclosures in advance and buy them up. So it's not so much, let's say, the average consumer that's going to be grabbing up these foreclosures, but investment groups will. 47, High Sterling. In this session of Lent and Easter almost upon us, I was wondering, where does Jesus fit into all the millions of realms of life beyond life? Was the story true? Did he actually come back from death? Or is the story more meant to simply install the idea of faith to millions on earth? So I've talked about this a lot. He was one of several, really thousands. I mean, there's hundreds to thousands of ascended masters on the other side. He certainly got a lot of notoriety. A lot of individuals, humanity followed him. The fact that there is no birth, there is no death. The fact that we actually transition to another dimension. Yeah, I mean that the experience or the stories that were told around that were really trying to communicate to everybody there is no death. You just move into another dimension. I see it all the time. So, he was highly connected to the one source, the one force, which we all are. We're all like drops of water in the ocean. So all this surrounds kind of the universal concepts that we are all one. There's a higher order. There's a life path for everything. We all stand in love. Only two energies in the world, love and fear. We all transition to another dimension. So a lot of what he experienced, a lot of what he received, the information, he was highly connected to the other side. Certainly, he brought through a lot of information that was supposed to be helpful for humanity. But I have to tell you, though, I give my team, that's kind of a year-round concept. So not just at Easter or Lent. These are the concepts that a lot of ascended masters on their side, the one source, the one force, are trying to communicate to everybody this is life all the way around year round. So not just that one time of year event, so to speak. 46, will RFK Jr. change his stance on measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines? Two children have now died in Texas. I think it might be more than that. However, I did say a long time ago that I saw RFK Jr. changing his stance on vaccines. It's interesting, at the end of these shows, I remember last Sunday, there was a prediction that came up from my team. There would be some like new vaccine for children or new push for children's vaccine. And I think we saw this past week that RFK Jr. came out and supported the measles vaccine. And so that was like a push. A lot of people got the endorsement. So I do see, yes, his stance on vaccines shifting as we go forward here. Okay, 45 in the countdown. Sterling, does the pineal gland, have anything to do with reaching the upper realm? So this gland is essential for clearness of thought, creativity, problem-solving skills. In that way, it actually does surround what I call the creative mind center. My team has always talked about this, that it's the creative or innovation mind center of the brain that connects with everything on the other side. So in this way, this particular gland can sharpen that focus. But I don't want everybody to get off course here to think it's that focus on just that gland that creates everything. In some respects, it's almost analogous to getting a good night's sleep. You feel centered, you feel grounded, you feel relaxed. That makes it very easy to reach out through the creative mind center. Okay. So, yes, that gland has some ability to control your focus, your ability to feel good, clearness of thought. So, in that way, it certainly supports and complements that. But my team would never describe it as the focus on that gland that is really the complete reason that we reach the upper realm. Not true. 44. 45 signed an executive order on Inauguration Day declaring a national emergency at the southern border. But the most alarming part is he gave the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security just 90 days to deliver a joint report on whether he should invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. That deadline is April 20th. Will 45 be successful in calling martial law? I think we touched on this earlier in the show. I do see Texas somehow coming under some form of martial law, a few days, a few weeks, some short period of time, but I don't see it as a nationwide effect or rollout of martial law. 43. Did Biden provide instructions to national security members or the military to investigate and bring 45 to justice? Did he grant any pocket pardons to them? Yes, I see he planned a lot of this out, and there are pocket pardons for a number of people. I do see that all the information related to election interference or electronic election interference was available to Biden and his team prior to Biden exiting the office. So I do see that there is a plan, a structure is put in place, including pocket pardons. I do see it for high-ranking officials. 42, new mobile phone and electronic device screening measures are now in place at various U.S. customs locations and airports and border locations. Will international travel for U.S. citizens become restricted under 45's administration as an effort to solidify control? I do see it's going to create longer inspection time. So it's going to increase the amount of time it takes to get across borders. I don't see it successfully stopping people from entering back into the country or whatnot. But it's just going to create more havoc, more time delays. 41, I have seen a lot of paranormal TV-based investigators, and I find they are predominantly pretending and acting for the camera. Based on my true curiosity, is there a way to actually capture spirits and ghosts on film or in audio form? Do the methods the investigators use really work in reality? So yes, there's some scientific fact that many of the measuring instruments can in fact interact with the other realm. The reason is, now not all of them do, but remember, we're all composed of energy. And when you're on the other side, you actually can develop the skill, if you're on the other side, to create yourself, show yourself as a full-scale apparition, interact with electromagnetic devices. So there's some microcosm of truth in all of this. You actually can interact. By and large, a lot of what goes on the shows you see is completely exaggerated. They're trying to reenact events that may have happened for a split second in time, but they didn't catch them on camera. You actually can use, infrared technology. You can use mobile phones, Apple iPhones, and use your camera. The infrared spectrum is very good at catching orbs, those kinds of things. But by and large, a lot of it is over the top for Hollywood, the things you see on these shows. But you can, in fact, interact with the other side through different forms of technology because we are all energy in its form, and you actually can interact that way. By the way, that even includes entities, spirits on the other side, being able to physically interact with things here in this real world. So moving coins across the table. Actually, we've even seen instances where a spirit can throw a brick across the room. So there's ways to interact energy wise, and some of those devices do pick up elements of the spirits, but it's a small percentage of the time. So you have to use some discretion with what you see and what you're looking at when you watch these shows. 40. Hello, Sterling. Pete Hegseth was on Fox News and states to cut military cost, he plans to remove 90,000 troops. How is that going to go? Do we need to make alternative plans? I do see here the military trying to cut their budget by 8 to 10%, might be 9 to 10%. I don't see 90,000 troops. So my team is saying it could potentially be 40 to 45,000 troops, still a big number, but not the numbers they're being quoted. So there is some sort of diligence trying to cut back on costs in the military budget, and it will affect, let's say, tens of thousands of troops. Don't see it anywhere near as high as 90,000. 39. When will the U.S. eventually have a national healthcare system similar to Medicare and Medicaid? I work in the healthcare industry. I'm seeing more and more unsettling things happen with the way things are now. I do see that the U.S. will eventually have a national healthcare system, but it doesn't look like it's for another 10 years. So we're looking at 2035. Going to take a long time to get to that point. However, they're just telling me that there'll always be, let's say, private healthcare options. So even when we get out to 2035, year 2035, there'll still be private healthcare options available. 38. Did mythical gods like Zeus and Hades actually exist? In most all cases, these were extraterrestrials that the civilizations of that time didn't understand what they were looking at or seeing. So really, in most all cases, these were forms of extraterrestrials. Okay, 37, the countdown. 45 is scheduled to go to Saudi Arabia on official business next month in May. Will he stay there, or is this just a recon visit for his exit strategy for later? I see it's a recon visit for strategy planning, looking at facilities, areas, locations, individuals, connections, communications. It's really to establish some sort of a form of comfort level for what could take place when an escape happens. So it's like set all that up for the future. 36, will EM work towards the demise of 45 when Tesla continues to tank and EM hits the wall or the bottom in terms of his margins? Will friend become foe? I do see EM will eventually turn on 45, spill the beans on everything. Once 45 has been declared, there's decertification that happens. I do see EM will eventually turn his back on 45. Actually, and I'm just getting because it'll be in some ways to cover his own hide because of all the things he did in terms of being a participant in the interference. 35 in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and team. With all the unconstitutional acts this 45 regiment is conducting and the significant protest across the world, is this having any real impact on 45 and the timeline for his eventual removal? Yes, it's all working to a much larger plan that's in place. So all these things contribute to the end goal, the end plan. 34, is Russia involved in any aspect of the Project 2025 plan? Yes, 100%, because it benefits all dictatorships around the world. We were talking earlier, and certainly Russia is one of the biggest beneficiaries. 33, Sterling, you often say that most extraterrestrials are nice or not here to harm us. Yet there are many, many reports of people being abducted and treated terribly. They are probed and experimented on. Some of these people suffer PTSD, say the experience was horrible, painful, and frightening. They describe the ETs, people call the Greys. Why the vast difference in what your guides say versus what the abductees say? So there are millions of interactions going on with extraterrestrials worldwide. There are some grays, right? So there are different types of grays. There are hybrid grays that are part biological, part AI. They're not so easy to deal with. There are fully, say, biological grays, extraterrestrial grays, much easier to deal with. There is a fractional percentage of some of the grays that are difficult to deal with. That's true. But by and large, if you look at over the millions of interactions that have occurred, even over history, extraterrestrials have been very beneficial to humanity. So there is a small fraction, if you will, of the extraterrestrial population that can be rather difficult to deal with. And yes, there's some experiments and there are things going on, but it's a small percentage. 32, you frequently state that we are never alone, that our guides and angels are always with us, ready to help us when we ask. What happens when we ask, even beg, but nothing happens, even begging to the point of desperation just for a sign, to be it large or small? For those of us who have this issue, what are we doing wrong? So you're not doing anything wrong. You're actually engaged in some sort of a learning experience going on there. Sometimes you're actually getting a message from your guides and angels, but looking past it. So it takes a little bit of practice. Sometimes it may be you're banging your head against the wall. So the lesson you're learning is you need to stop and take a step back and think and listen. It's not that you're not getting a sign. Sometimes you can look past the sign. Remember, signs come in all forms. They can come through a clairaudient channel. They can come through something a friend says to you that's like out of the blue. Why would the friend say that to me? It can come from a chance meeting with someone on the street or a bus or a train or an airplane. Your guides will always find ways to communicate with you. But I do find that the best way to do that is to become, they call it listen to the still small voice, but take a step back, try to relax your mind, look for the signs that are being provided to you, okay? I find many times people are getting signs, but they're looking past them, okay? 31, I know the new Earth theory about Earth splitting into two and people living on different planes of reality. Do you think that's what's happening at this time? Well, no, many individuals are becoming aware of the spirituality, the one source, the one force. We all have angels and guides, how the universe works, what quantum physics are all about, quantum mechanics, linear time versus nonlinear time. All these elements are coming into play. So it's not that the earth is splitting into two. People are becoming more elevated, more educated, more sensitive to the other side. So that's all true. This is kind of the way the universe is evolving. This is all part of like an evolution. But it's not that one universe exists and one doesn't. Many individuals will be aware and enlightened to the other side, and many individuals won't. It's like if an analogy is school. Sometimes people do not want to learn no matter what. They may fail many grades while others excel through classes and they make it out to college or other advanced degree programs or training programs. It really is an ability to want to learn, to keep yourself open to learning. You know, some of the smartest people that I know in the world, this is a footnote comment, always will say, it's always a good day to learn something new. You can always learn something new. So by and large, people that are open to the other side, the veil's thinning, they're open to new adventures, new concepts, okay? 30. What is the difference between chakras and auras? So my team always thinks about auras as the larger kind of overall like energy field around a person, where chakras are kind of very discrete, unique energy centers within the body. So if you think about the collective effect of all of the chakras, that creates an overall energy field around you, which is like an aura. You think about individual chakras like the crown chakra, the heart chakra. We could spend a lot of time talking about chakras, but the real difference is, overall energy effect or energy field around a person, which is like an aura, which is certainly contributed to by your chakras, your individual energy centers. 29. Do extraterrestrials have any influence over the timelines that happen on Earth? Were some of them influential in the election interference that happened? So, no, extraterrestrials do not manipulate the timeline here on Earth. They certainly engage with people, try to help where they can, deliver information, but they do not manipulate the timelines here on Earth. They're not allowed to. 28. Hello, Sterling. As you have indicated in the past, extraterrestrials are responsible for many of the crop circles around the world. I'd like to know if they mutilate the animals sometimes found in the fields and why. Yes, there are certain extraterrestrial species that are responsible for the cattle mutilations that you see. This is all part of what's called biological engineering. It's true. Some of the biology or biological engineering does contribute to the development of hybrids on board motherships. Won't get into a lot of detail here, but yes, part of the population of extraterrestrials is involved in biological engineering, and this has led to cattle mutilations. Now, a lot of this information has been shared with major governments around the world, so a lot of major governments are aware of this. I know it's a startling practice, but it's part of kind of an evolution, believe it or not, of humanity. Okay. 27, will the tariffs the administration implemented along with the retaliatory tariffs, will we go into a recession or depression? I think we talked about this earlier. We are entering into probably two-quarter, a recession going on here, and then we'll come out of it. It's not going to be a depression. 26, why did SCOTUS reverse the ruling regarding firing of government probationary employees? I get this was a technicality that, like the 9 unions that brought the case, where SCOTUS was saying you're not the right individual or entity to bring this case before us. So it's more of like a technicality, is what I'm getting here. 25, when election interference information is made public, will 45 remain in office while he is being verified? Will his cabinet and political appointments be terminated on the day the 2024 election is decertified? Well, once 45 is decertified, eventually he'll be removed from office, but there's going to be a big lag effect to the organization. The appointments are always a lag effect as you move through government. So, I mean, there's a lag effect to all of this as the information rolls out and then further action is taken. Okay. Actually, the good way to look at it, it's going to start a long chain of events across Congress. 24, what will the impact of RFK Jr. on healthcare be in the US and Dr. Oz on Medicare and Medicaid? I do get they're going to slow down access to all of these support healthcare programs, going to slow down access. But I've always seen there could be alternative methods or procedures or even drugs, vaccines, a lot of alternate workaround procedures. So it's going to create complexity, slow down access, the efficiency of these programs, but there's always going to be alternative ways to work around it. 23, can you tell us the volatility caused by tariffs and their withdrawing and reapplying, causing market manipulation? Is it a pump and dump scheme around 45 and his inner circle? So yeah, this is all part of the rationale behind it, but it has a lot to do with unqualified individuals trying to affect the economy, people that are not knowledgeable whatsoever. And this is a lot of, I'll just call it out as stupidity in the way the economy is being handled. 22, 45 is sending more troops to the Middle East. Is he planning on starting a war with Iran? Will he succeed in doing so? I do believe he is thinking and planning about a conflict with Iran, but all based around a limitation of nuclear capabilities, trying to limit Iran's ability for nuclear capabilities. Interestingly enough, I do see there's a conflict coming there but I do feel it leads to some sort of a negotiation around nuclear capability for Iran. So I see a lot of world leaders getting together around negotiating another, nuclear agreement or limitation of nuclear capability for Iran. 21, the Earth has the most wonderful, breathtaking nature and wildlife. Do other planets where extraterrestrials live have also the same surroundings or perhaps even more beautiful ones? Well, no other planet but Earth has the unique combination, a huge combination of natural life, foliage, animals, Homo sapiens sapiens, extraterrestrials, hybrids. No other area in the universe is that unique laboratory. But many other areas of the universe have elements, right? Other types of animals, plants, hybrids. They do. So a little different combination, but Earth is really a giant laboratory, very unique in that area. 20, I live in Utah. For decades, we've been warned there will be a big earthquake along the Wasatch Fault line someday. With the uptick in earthquakes, do you see anything like this happening here in Utah anytime soon? I do see over the next 5 years here, I'm going to call it a large earthquake in the 6.2 to 6.7 Richter scale range for this area of Utah. They're showing me over the next 5 years. That might be a little bit of delay then, right? So it may not happen right away, but within the next 5 years, they're showing me here. 19, you've indicated in prior shows that China will be a superpower in about 1 to 2 decades. Will it be the sole superpower? What will happen to the US and the European Union at that time? So what I do see is that China will be a superpower in about 2 decades, with about twice the GDP of the US. So we're looking at something like $60 trillion. I think the GDP for the US is like $29 trillion. Yes, so China will be a superpower along with other superpowers like the US. Uh, yeah, so it's actually, there are going to be a number of superpowers around the world, but it does look like at least a doubling of the overall GDP up to like $60 trillion for China. 18, Sterling and team. Humans are creating literally tons of garbage every day. Our oceans are filling with plastic, and the species we share our planet with are dying as we take over their homes. Will we learn to respect and care for each other and the earth that gives us life before it's too late? I do see massive progress in these areas over the next 5 years. So the humanity, the world's going to wake up in a more diligent way. Really, the realization of overall climate change, the way we're treating the planet, is going to awaken here. It's over about the next five years here. Is a big awakening coming, big turnaround. 17. Can you comment on Mount? Is it Kailash? It is in Tibet, and it's Kailash, Kailash. It is in Tibet. Nobody is allowed to climb or fly over it because it's considered sacred. Some say that the mythical kingdom of Shambhala is beneath it. Some say it is man-made of a series of pyramids. It is said that those who managed to climb it did not reach the top because they aged rapidly. NASA found that it emits strong electromagnetic energy. What do your guides see? I do see this is an area of a very large magnetic energy field on Earth, this particular mountain, Mount Kailash. I don't see that it's composed of pyramids. It wasn't man-made. It looks like it was made through natural events occurring here on Earth. And I don't see, with asking, it was an ancient kingdom of Shambhala buried beneath it. No. I do see it aligns with a lot of Hindu beliefs, religious beliefs. I get that. And I think a lot of times I've seen around the world when there are very large magnetic energy centers, people do feel a connection to the universe, to the one source, the one force, the very large magnetic energy field. But again, not man-made, not pyramids underneath it, no ancient kingdom of Shambhala underneath it. And I think it looks like there's a lot of folklore around people that didn't make it to the top because they aged quickly. I think there are other like natural accidents that occurred. 16, Senator Cory Booker has said the power of the people is greater than people in power. Is this true? Will our rising up, boycotting, marching make a difference? Yes, it all makes a difference, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. There are many world countries and organizations, intelligence groups all coming around to try to rectify the situation going on in the US and even those around the world. So, yeah, the people are important, and it's an important force, but then those in power also need to take action. 15, when will there be a shift towards prioritizing U.S. citizens in the hiring process, particularly in the technology industry, where the overuse of H-1B visas continues to displace qualified American talent? So I get this is primarily being driven by major cost savings to these companies, but this will start to turn around here again in about 5 year period. So the very fact the desire for major cost savings will not minimize the use of H-1B visas, but it's going to be a number of years here before that seems to kind of do a new level set. Okay. 14, hello Sterling. I've heard conflicting stories regarding student loan repayments being due in May or September 2025. Which were the last instructions from the Department of Education? Will student loans remain in deferment going forward? I actually see that student repayments or loan repayment programs are going to start August, September of this year. But it's going to be at like a very reduced rate. So I know they sometimes they base it on income level, some percentage. But it looks like it's going to start up again in August, September of this year. And my teams remind me they're going to have several income tiers, like many income tiers. So deciding what your minimum payment is. So it looks like it's going to be helpful. 13, for years, many nonprofits have depended on government funding to provide social services to help those in need. What is the outlook for these agencies as that government funding is drastically rescinded? Big impact, as I've seen here, but over the course of 2025, here again, by we get to 2026, there's going to be a lot of these nonprofits will be re-engaged, refund, they're going to put new funding into them. But a lot of reorganization around the nonprofits, how they roll up through the government. I think you saw part of that with the U.S. aid organization and how it's dismantled and it's going to be reorganized, put under a different parent organization. So a lot of this can continue around 2025 before they get reinstated. 12, will AI help to end barbaric animal testing? If so, when do you see this happening? Yes, we've read on this before. It's interesting. Artificial intelligence, along with biological or biologic material 3D printing, is going to really negate the need for animal testing over the next 10-year period here. So the ability to use artificial intelligence, trillions of associated databases of information, along with the ability to biologically print 3D organs and things that would be tested on animals, you're actually going to see a move in laboratories over to new methods, okay? 11, I've been reading the book about Travis Walton's ET abduction in Snowflake, Arizona in 1975. I'm curious what type of beam hit him, knocked him down. Also, how is a tractor beam able to bring up a person into the craft? What type of technology is that? So tractor beams I get from my team are high energy magnetic resonance devices. Okay. So in the same way you can use, same way that magnets attract devices, there are ways of developing high energy magnetic resonance. I'll call it a weapon. Let's call it a piece of equipment to be able to attract the biology in a human. This technology does exist in many extraterrestrial areas. So that's, in fact, ETs don't call it a tractor beam. That really comes out of Hollywood for the most part. However, I fully understand. I do see that Travis Walton's abduction story was true, if that was part of the question. Um, yeah, so they say what type of beam knocked him down. It was this high energy magnetic resonance piece of equipment. Okay. By the way, my team is saying within 20 years, this particular type of tractor beam technology will be available to humanity. Okay, 10 in the countdown. Hello, Sterling. Recently, Pete Hegseth and the 45 administration fired senior officer Shoshana Chatfield from her Navy position. Is this going to be permanent? They allegedly fired her for being too woke with the liberal side. I get this is a permanent dismissal, it's a permanent firing. However, she's going to be part of a very important group of voices that are going to help bring the 45 administration down. So she's actually going to play a very important role going forward, but this particular position looks like the firing is permanent. Number nine in the countdown. Hi, Sterling and team. What is the real reason for these tariffs? So I think we talked about this a few times, but isolationism, implementation of the Project 2025 plan, the weakening of the U.S. on the world stage. Eight, what will hurricane season look like for South Carolina and North Carolina coastal residents this year? I get very active June through November. A lot of a high number of named storms. So I'm not an expert, but I think when they name storms are above a certain intensity level, but a very large number of named storms. Okay, seven in the countdown. Is extraterrestrial contact happening through the means of visions, dreams, and physically happening at an accelerated rate because of ET disclosure coming? More people are coming out saying they are seeing this sort of phenomenon at a higher frequency rate. Yes, this is all part of the full disclosure coming of extraterrestrials, the entire population of the world, not just the unique few that are communicating with them, but it is actually part of the full disclosure process coming. Six, is it true that it does not matter what political party rules, the ones with real power are the shadow billionaires, bankers, etc., who are so rich and powerful that they set the agenda and keep the presidents in line? Is certainly a factor, but a lot of the influence of large money, large organizations is going to be minimized over the next 10-year period here, even 8 to 10 years. So it's all going to be minimized. This is all coming on the public. This is all part of the huge shift that's going on over the 3 decades, right? 2020, 2050. But you'll see a big difference over the next 10 years in the way, let's say, big money and billionaires are able to influence government, big changes. Five, is it possible for us to experience dreams of past lives from other realms? Yes, especially if you're able to astral travel, if you can develop that technique and easily go to the other side, parts of heaven dimension, time's nonlinear. You can look forward in time, backwards in time, and look at past lives. Absolutely. Okay, four in the countdown. I just heard that Doge crashed the Social Security servers by installing faulty software. Is this true? I get there's some truth in this that software was not tested adequately or not tested at scale, and which means they did a small little pilot or a digital sandbox sort of a test. And then when they put it at scale, it did crash the system. So I get there's some truth in this, but the problems were corrected. Three in the countdown. Do your extraterrestrial friends have anything they want to share? And as we get into the last three here in the countdown, three, two, and one, I always take notes in advance of the show. So I'll read those back to you. So again, number three, do extraterrestrial friends have anything they want to share? Do not ever doubt that we are around you all of the time. Just look up in the night sky in rural areas and use your camera technology to spot us. We will give you a blinking light in the sky as a confirmation. Number two in the countdown. What do you see coming up next week? Many more billionaires coming out against 45 tariffs and economic policies in public that will start to sway the Congress overall. The UK, Canada, and China placing increased harsh tariffs on the US. Some new release information coming forward on a select few El Salvador immigrants coming back and the process of release moving forward. So progress around El Salvador prison situation we see going on. And number one in the countdown, do you have anything your guides want to share? Be careful of the thoughts you carry through each day because you are more powerful than you believe, and everything you think creates ripples in the world in creating our collective future reality. Stay in a state of understanding and love. Never forget to stand up for your principles. On that note, that concludes the show being recorded today on Saturday, April 12th, 2025, posted to all media platforms worldwide. Sunday, April 13th, 2025. Again, if you need to reach me, go to sterlingpsychicmedium.com, look for the book a session tab. Sessions available January, February, and March of 2026. And if you want to join our Platinum membership, for access to hundreds of videos, live streams on Fridays with myself, go to our homepage, look for the Platinum membership join button, homepage of the website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com, as well as our YouTube channel. I will now send out a tremendous amount of goodwill and important levels of love and gratitude to you and your families for everything going on, all your participation, everything going on in your life. All the best, and I will see you all again very soon.